Hello, come on in. We have breaking news in the David D4VD and Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. Stop what you're doing, put it down, grab yourself your coffee, your snacks, your water, whatever. Yeah, sounds good. Cozy up to me. Come on in. We have breaking news in the case. Today we're going to be talking about new information on the real reason why this toxicology is on hold. It turns out that there were medications found inside the mansion. And I'm watching my words here. Was this used on Celeste, or was she ever even at the mansion? We're going to talk about that. PI Steve Fischer tells us more about farm implements. So we got some more details on what those are. And then we have, did David upload a song to Band Land this week? Or is someone else just trolling us? Is someone using his account, or is he using his account to troll us? And then Steve Fischer claps back at TMZ, Harvey Levin, and Mark Geragos. Let's get started. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. You can tell me what country, what city, what state, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. If you haven't subscribed, it's free. Please do. In the Reporter Room family, like, share, leave a comment, and know that everything I'm sharing is my opinion. David and everybody I'm talking about in this case is innocent until proven guilty. And also, this video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. So let's start with the medication. So what kind of medication was found in the mansion, right? Prescription pills. Who had the prescription, and was this used on Celeste? Well, the homeowner, which is Madeline Trifunovic, told the Daily Mail that he hired private investigator Steve Fischer after the LAPD served their search warrant and raided the mansion to determine whether or not Celeste ever stayed at the mansion. And if so, when was she last seen there? Remember, the owner does have a dog in this fight. I do want to just put that out there. But get this, in the weeks since PI Steve Fischer has been working his tushy off, he has gone through surveillance footage, interviewed neighbors, searched the property himself for clues, and he's saying now that he has recovered a series of strange items, these farm implements, and we got some more clues as to what those would be. So according to the Daily Mail, which came out today, Steve Fischer elaborated and said, quote, so this is new. There was multiple of these items that could all be used together. Tools and machinery you would never need in a Hollywood Hills home. So what would you be likely to find on a farm as far as machinery goes? I'm wondering if it's a wood chipper. Is it a wood chipper, you guys? So what are the farm implements? Let's do a poll. If you guys think that it's a wood chipper, put a 1 in the chat with some other things, because it's implements, plural, right? There's more than one. If you think it's something else besides a wood chipper, put a 2 in the chat, and whatever you think it is, just be careful of what your words are. So let's do a poll on that. I want to see where you guys are at. So one of the items that appears to have recently, and your number should appear right here on my screen. So one of the items that appears to have been recently delivered to the mansion is, so this was newly ordered. He said it was still in its shipping packaging. Remember, Celeste was moved in the front trunk of that Tesla on July 29th, the same day that David and others hopped on his tour bus to begin his tour. So one of the items was recently delivered and was still in his packages. So does this the part B to the plan that Steve Fischer has been alluding at? So now let's talk about the importance. Is this new information why the TMZ has been talking about Harvey Levin about the importance of the toxicology screen, you guys? Well, let's dive into this. So we know TMZ has been running with that law enforcement needs a toxicology, and Harvey Levin did a podcast with Mark Garagos. If you remember who Mark Garagos was or is, he was the defense attorney for Scott Peterson in the Lacey Peterson case, the same case I've been talking about, how they can, even if they don't know how somebody has passed, they can still go forward and press charges. It's harder, but they can still do it. They were able to get a conviction in the Scott Peterson case. Moreover, he even got sentenced to capital punishment. Now, the capital punishment was later commuted, but the jury was all in. So TMZ has been running with the story about needing the toxicology. Harvey Levin says he has sources inside the LAPD, and the LAPD also has said that they're waiting for the toxicology. Well, get this, you guys. Bottles of the prescription pain medication were also recovered inside the mansion. There were also various items of paraphernalia. That's not too hard to figure out what that might be. But I'm watching my words here, and the condition of the home and the items found inside were otherwise normal. This is according to PI Steve Fischer. So the LAPD has not returned requests by the Daily Mail for comments on PI Steve Fischer, and neither has David's attorney, his high-powered attorney who represented Harvey Weinstein and also represented Prince Andrew. Now, Celeste COD remains undetermined because we don't have the toxicology reports back, and no suspects have been named. Now, PA Fischer says that his team found that multiple, get this, you guys, this is, I think, part of the reason for the delay. They found out that there were multiple other people living at the house, or at least sleeping at the house, at the mansion that was rented by Josh Marshall, David's manager, and they had at their personal belongings at the house. So there were other people in the guest room at David's mansion. So either, I think the LAPD has to go through all of these people and either rule them in as a suspect or rule them out as a suspect. And this means they need to be interviewed and all of their alibis need to be verified. Now, hopefully they've already done this. So did David remove Celeste's belongings, or were Celeste's belongings in the second location on Doheny? For those of you that are like, what is she talking about, the second location? If you didn't see my last live stream, there is, let me make myself smaller here. There is another house. There is another house, a second house that we know for a fact that Celeste was in there. Here is Celeste and David on their live stream, right? On a live stream. We all know this is Celeste. We all know this is David. And then if you look in the background, you can see the roll shades for the windows. You can see the stove is silver. Let me move myself down here. You can also see there is a silver hood, and you can also see the white cabinets. Okay, now look at the house on Doheny. Silver stove, silver hood, rolled, exact same rolled white shutters, or what rolled white shades, and white cabinets. And you can see, if I move myself over here, you can see the blue tile right next to David's hair, right? You can see that blue tile. Okay, so, but it just, so, and this is the other image that we have proving there was a second residence on Doheny. We have seen this photograph of the house on Doheny Drive, right? So this would be the second residence. Did law enforcement even search this residence, or was it too late? And then if you look at this image, you can see clearly 1, 2, 3. That is the same photo with Celeste and David taking a picture on this at the Doheny property. Here's the images of the ocean, but there's hangers hanging there. But there's 1, 2, 3 pictures, right, with the ocean. And if you look at the picture with David and Celeste, you can see 1, 2, 3 pictures of the ocean. It's the same location, guys. Same location. And the Doheny residence is interesting because that got put back on the market in March. In March. And remember, the last known sighting of Celeste that we know of so far is January 2nd of 2025. This house was relisted, taken off the market from July of 2022. It was relisted on March the 7th of 2025. So I do think this house is significant to this crime. So let's continue on because we have a lot to unpack. So now we know what more about what the holdup is. So does this mean that if you think that Celeste was stashed at the Doheny house, put second home in the chat. If you think David's belongings, if you think Celeste's belongings were removed from the mansion at the same time that she was put in the trunk of the Tesla, put removed in the chat. But it may be that they don't have video of Celeste at the mansion because she was staying at Doheny. So does this mean that the LAPD has retrieved something from the mansion already prior to Steve Fischer getting into it, like Celeste's belongings? Or is this because she was never at the mansion? She was at the Doheny property the whole time. Now, Steve Fischer is not in possession of any evidence that proves, but remember, who's he working for? The mansion owner, and it would seriously affect the mansion owner's value of his property. So he does have a dog in this fight. Okay. I'm not saying anybody is making up anything. I just want to make that abundantly clear. So the LAPD has not confirmed any ties between Celeste and David. It's a matter that's considered under investigation. And the sources close to Celeste told the Daily Mail that the pair were in an illicit and illegal relationship. So that the first contact, this is coming from family who's finally speaking out. The first contact over social media to Celeste is when she was 11 or 12. David reached out to Celeste when she was 11 or 12 years old. So was Celeste put directly into the Tesla trunk, or was she in a freezer or some other place prior to being placed in the trunk? Because why don't we have images? What happened to Celeste between January 2nd and when she was found in the trunk? We know that the car was moved. The Tesla was moved on July 29th, and there's no video of her being put in the trunk after that. So she was in the trunk probably when the Tesla was moved. So where was she from January 2nd till July 29th? Now, PI Steve Fischer has been poring over hours and hours of surveillance footage. He wants to put together a timeline. He's trying to determine when Celeste was last alive. Now, he told the Daily Mail, get this, the footage shows that the Tesla, which was dented and covered in mud, was last moved on July 29th, and it clearly shows the face of the driver, but he is still refusing to name who the driver is. Now, he has promised to tell us who the driver is. He has promised to tell us who the driver is. But so far, if the LAPD doesn't reveal it soon. So PI Fischer said that David was in LA at the time that the car was moved, but he didn't say that David was the driver, and that he departed for San Francisco later that day to perform on his first Withered tour. And I have proof of that. And we're going to talk about Steve clapping back. This is proof. You can see right here. Let me take the banner down. This is proof. D4VD tour starts today, and the date, July 30th. You can see the date right there at the bottom, circled in red. Okay. So that is proof. So I think that this, so this is really interesting. So there were more people living at the house, you guys, combined with the evidence at the house has led Steve Fischer to believe that David had a tight entourage of trusted associates. He said, quote, there was a small inner circle, 2, 3, maybe 4, who appeared to be living at the house and were very close with David. How close? Like, what were they willing to do? So, and the law enforcement does need to rule these people in or out of the investigation. So they need to learn about any potential motives, alibis. They need to go find out about the Doheny property. But a neighbor does place Celeste outside the mansion, sitting outside waiting for David. So we have at least one eyewitness that she was at the mansion. So he added, this is Steve Fischer, after the story broke, they all started unfollowing each other. Was this a coordinated plan? Because that's obstruction of justice. He said, this is the PI. He said, after the story broke, they all started to unfollowing each other, deleting posts that showed them together. And we have heard this. We have heard that Neo and David both scrubbed their social media accounts. This is Neo right here. We've heard that they both scrubbed their social media accounts. There's Neo. Let's just put that right there. So they both scrubbed their social media, but now Steve Fisher is telling us that other people did it too, not just David and Neo. Now, to be clear, Neo hasn't been charged with anything. Neither has David, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But there is an indication, according to PI Steve Fisher, that multiple people had access to the Tesla, and he said he believes this to be the case. Now, David was out performing when Celeste was found in the front trunk of his Tesla, and he has never said one word of empathy, compassion, nothing. Not one kind word about Celeste. Not one word of condolence, not one word of sympathy. So now we have this very interesting, did Celeste cheat on David? And I'm putting the cheat in air quotes because Celeste was not 18 years old, and therefore she could not legally consent to being in a relationship with David or any adult. But leaked in the 2023, you guys know there was the untitled song Celeste. It was leaked in December of 2023 and has been circulating online. And I think this, I told you guys about this the other day. This sweatshirt, when it's blown up, says Divine Celestial, and David wore this on Celeste's birthday. Remember, this is September 7th, one day before she's found in the trunk. He's wearing a Hello Kitty, which we know he's referred to his Hello Kitty girl. We know in the missing poster, Celeste was wearing Hello Kitty shoes, and now he's wearing a Hello Kitty shirt with the words Divine Celestial on the front of his shirt. Why? Why? So get this, there was a Band Lab upload this week. Users on BandLab and Reddit are both reporting notifications that a song by that title, Celeste, appeared and then immediately disappeared. So if you believe that this song, the Celeste song, was uploaded to BandLab by David himself, put David in the chat. If you believe that the song was uploaded by someone else, throwing some shade at David that maybe had access to his account, put someone else, not David, or someone else in the chat. I'm just like curious what you guys think about this. And yours. So, okay. So the Divine Celestial is huge. So what is so suspicious about the Celeste song? Well, the lyrics of the song mention a girl named Celeste, and this incident has garnered a lot of attention online because it happened during the ongoing investigation. Remember, David's refusing to talk to anybody. Yeah, his PR team put out that they were cooperating with law enforcement. The LAPD was asked about it, and they declined to respond, which to me says they're not going to say he was cooperating. They don't want to say he's not, but they're not going to say that he is. So I think that's really interesting too. So was this uploaded, this Celeste song, this week by David, or was this somebody in his entourage who's absolutely maybe just had it? Maybe just tired of being implicated in this and wants to put the blame squarely where it belongs, in their opinion, on David. And if you didn't see my last video, I talk about this post, which was made on Celeste's birthday, about a blackbird and the significance of that. You'll want to see that. Go check that out next. But stay with me on this because we have more breaking news. So was this song, the Celeste song, uploaded by David this week to BandLab, or was this somebody else previously? So sometimes the past history helps us solve what's really going on. David did use a mobile app to create his early viral hits like Romantic Homicide and Here With Me before signing with a record label. Now, netizens means internet citizens. So netizens are now speculating that the upload may have been teased. Is he really trying to sell us songs? May have been teased as a demo, a test track, or a snippet from David's upcoming project. And the idea that Celeste has been found and that this guy would be working on an upcoming project, to me, feels really disturbing. Let me know what you think about this. Just watch what words you use. One Reddit user wrote, "This has to be a song he made before she passed. He was singing like she broke his heart. He's always making her look bad in his new songs, especially when the ones where he talks about replacing him." So this, makes me wonder if, she cheated on him. She can't cheat on him because he shouldn't have been having a relationship with a little girl. But anyone get the idea of him? This is the Reddit user wrote. Anybody get the idea of him using that to cope with what's happened, whether she passed accidentally or not? I feel like he'd rather accept that she broke his heart than accept that she's gone. Like, this is one way to disconnect from the reality of it all. Does anyone else feel that way? Another Reddit user commented, quote, "Feels like he's leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for people to analyze." So why is PI Steve Fischer clapping back at Harvey Levin? Well, let's dig into that because it all goes back to, I'll read you the clap back and then we'll go through why he's clapping back. I think this is interesting. So let me pull this up. Okay. Take this down and pull this up. All right. So this is Steve Fischer. This is his clapback. And then we're going to show you why he's clapping back so hard. Why is he so peeved with Harvey Levinson? So this is Steve Fischer. He says, when a missing person report is filed, it is a serious matter. The person is entered into the NCIC, which is maintained by the FBI. In California, they are added to the California Department of Justice Missing Person Database, and minors are entered into the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children system. Behind the scenes, detectives, case advocates, investigators, and others are actively working to locate the missing individual. If a missing person is found by their family, the family has a duty to notify law enforcement. At that point, law enforcement conducts a locate, meaning an officer meets with the missing person in person to confirm their identity, understand the circumstances of their disappearance, and verify that they're not a danger to themselves or others. Unfortunately, this was not done because the first time Celeste was, this is according to Steve Fischer, the first time Celeste was reported missing was February 14th of 2024, the exact same day, you guys, that D4VD's manager, Josh Marshall, took possession of the rental house. The last time she was reported missing was April 5th of 2024, but was she truly missing? On May 30th of 2024, Celeste attended her cousin Esmeralda's high school graduation. This is Celeste with her cousin Esmeralda. In September, she was seen in a video arguing or, having a disagreement with neighbors in the Lake Elsinore home. So why didn't any family member notify law enforcement that she was safe? Possibly they were worried it would trigger a CPS investigation. He's got a question mark there. From the start, someone close to the situation in Lake Elsinore told me that after the last report, certain family members instructed concerned neighbors not to search for Celeste because she was, quote, staying with a family member near Los Angeles. Is that why we haven't heard a word publicly from her family? Well, they did speak out. They spoke out to the Daily Mail today. And so he says, Esmeralda, I have a question for you. Did you attend the event with David and Celeste on April 21st of 2024? I'm also curious why Celeste was attending your graduation, yet still considered a runaway, not enrolled in school, as the school president seemed to know better than that. And then this is the missing poster. So I just want to be clear that some people, it just may be that they just didn't want to get involved with the police. Let me pull this up. That maybe, they just really didn't want anything to do with the police. Minimal. I don't know. Maybe she was gone again so fast they didn't get a chance. But he is also clarifying that this is a false quote, claiming that I referred to items in the house as heavy tools or farm machinery or something to that effect. I never said that. What I said was there were items in the house that would serve no purpose in a Hollywood home. They are items you typically find on a farm or farm environment. So he's disputing now what the Daily Mail is claiming that he said. But let's look at one more thing. I think this Harvey Levin and Mark Garagos posted a video together. Let's look at that. Okay, so this is TMZ. Let me move myself over here. Is David being framed? They go after Steve Fischer here.
The police just said that the victim had a tattoo on the right index finger that said SHHH ... We got a tip that it was this girl, Celeste Rivas. We got in touch with her mother, and we talked to the mother, who said, yes, the tattoo was red, and that she had a boyfriend named David. And we're thinking, wait a minute, the car is registered to David. So I called the LAPD. I called robbery homicide, and I called them to give them her number and her name so that maybe this was the girl. And they didn't return my call. And I thought,
wait, when did you call them? What date?
It was around September 5th when this all came out, before they knew who she was. All they said was, we're trying to figure out who it is. And I thought, well, maybe it's her. So I called LAPD, and I think what they thought was I was just trying to get information. So they didn't call me back. Right. So I called them the next day. And and this is no disparagement to robbery homicide, but they were annoyed that I was even calling. And I said, guys, I want to give you something. And I told them. And when I said that she had the tattoo and it was red, I could hear something because they hadn't released that it was red. And
it was red.
Okay. So that's just some more information that, just proof that absolutely, let me go over here for a second. Absolutely. We have a problem with the tattoo that definitely does link back to David and Celeste. So it sounds like, let's pull this up. But now,
against anyone,
we have them saying that they don't believe that this case is going to get solved. I disagree with that. I just want to say that. But that is what Harvey Levin is claiming, and Mark Garagos, who's a defense attorney.
Not only is your information correct, but I'm told as well that there was not only more than one way to get into that house, but there were numerous keys and access points into the house. And that comes from almost an unimpeachable source. And in addition to that, that the access to the car was clearly not limited to just one person.
Yes.
Clearly not limited. And
okay, so now we're learning that this is probably why we have a pause. The access to the Tesla wasn't one person. And they're saying that there were more than, remember Steve Fischer put out that there was only one key to the house, and they're saying no, that there was more than one key.
You don't have to speculate as to how the authorities know that. The authorities know that there's actually 3 different ways, separate ways, that they know that there was access in that car, and that car was accessed and driven by more than 3 people in the week prior to it being parked.
Yes, that's exactly, just so people know, Mark and I have not talked about this.
We haven't talked about this, and we're not talking the same people, because your people are different than what other people are.
Okay, so this is from TMZ, and this is Harvey Levin, who is the host of TMZ, and then he is speaking with Mark Garagos, who was the defense attorney for Scott Peterson.
And I'm getting the exact same information. And I'm told a lot of people. So I do not think, look, I'm just saying that this is not aligning with what this PI is saying. What I am hearing, Mark, is that number one, that David has not been notified in any way, shape, or form that he's a suspect. That's number one. Number two, what I'm told is what the shoe that everybody involved in this is waiting to drop is toxicology.
And now we know why. According to the Daily Mail, there were pill bottles found at the house. So now we understand why the toxicology is so important in this case.
I was just going to say it's the ME, and that's precisely, it's amazing. We got the exact same information. Not only has he not been, now remember, for people who don't know or aren't in the weeds in Los Angeles, this is primarily right now a county investigation. County meaning it's the DA's office supervising the police investigation, number one. If this were federal, you would say, okay, is it a person of interest? Is it a subject? Is it a target? None of that applies because this is the county prosecutor looking at it. There is no indication whatsoever that they have said, hey, to his lawyer or to anybody who represents him that you're about to be arrested or you better surrender or we're going to pick you up after a show or after a recording session. Quite the opposite. They don't know where to begin. And by the way, the police have been very people keep saying they're not giving us anything. Even you said, Harvey, they've been tight to the vest.
Yeah.
They did say they telegraphed, we're not even sure about a crime because they can't say anything yet. They don't want to get over their skis until they get an ME report that is fully baked.
It could.
And I agree with that. I am now finding out that there were other people staying in the mansion. They have to also look at everybody that would have had access. But now they may have just learned, just as we did the other day, that there was a second house on Doheny, and Celeste may have been stashed at that house. So there may be a whole nother crime scene, you guys, for them to look at. Let's continue on.
Be, for example, a drug overdose, which is not a homicide. Now, if the body was cut up in any way, that could be a crime, but not the crime of a homicide. And so they need to determine, was this a homicide? Was it something like an overdose? They're not going to know that fully until they get a tox report back. And that's what everybody's waiting for. I made some phone calls this morning and I have not gotten anything definitive, but what I can say is that various people who would be in a position or should be in a position to know what the results are, my information is they're still in the dark. And
okay, so obviously, I do believe that Harvey Levin has contacts at the LAPD. My understanding is that TMZ does pay for tips. And I believe also Mark Garagos, who's a California-based attorney who represented Scott Peterson, also probably has contacts at the LAPD. So I believe it.
that suggests to me that the tox report isn't in. What's confusing me about that is we are now, maybe we're getting into a 2-month territory since the body was discovered. What I don't understand, I know it normally takes a couple of months to get a tox result back. Why wouldn't they move this, Mark, to the front of the line? I'm confused by this.
This is what I'm told, that you could, if you wanted, expedite the tox results. You could get the report back on the tox in less than 72 hours. I've done it. I've actually had it turn around in 24 hours. The problem they have here, I'm told, is that because of the decomposition of the body, the length of time between presumably when she passed and from when it was actually delivered to the coroner, that there are all kinds of complications scientifically with them drawing any conclusions about the results that they get. And I'll give you.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Just hearing that she was in the vehicle for quote unquote weeks, according to the LAPD captain. And remember, we've talked about the fact that they were going to have to go in to do the tox screen from the vitreous humor in the eye. So finding out that we've had toxicology turned around in 24 to 72 hours when we have a big profile case like this, but then finding out the condition, and we don't know where she was before she was in the trunk. Was she alive and well, living in the Doheny property, or is there something more nefarious going on here?
A perfect example of this for people who understand it from alcohol. In a DUI case, you have to generally test somebody within 3 hours because the alcohol dissipates. In a GHB date rape case, the half-life of the GHB dissipates in an extremely quick fashion. If you don't get tested, you don't get a result generally. This you now have, depending on what, if anything, was ingested, you don't know, and scientifically, they may not be able to ever render an opinion as to what was actually in the body at the time of passing and what could have and I don't want to say metabolized, but what fermented, what actually happened in the period of time from when the passing to the discovery, and whether or not any of the things have any of a scientific ability to then extrapolate and say, this was what was in the system at the time and was the cause of death. They're having a devil of a time establishing the anything to do with the cause of death.
Okay, so we now found out, and he says he has sources inside. I believe Mark Garza goes. He's been, practicing law for a long time. But Steve Fischer, is clapping back really hard at the idea that, he feels like that Harvey Levin, who's the founder of TMZ, may have mischaracterized his findings. He said that he took issue with Harvey Levin's description of the Hollywood Hills residence as a party house, saying there was only one document complaint during the lease. Well, I think it's being characterized as a party house, even though there's only one documented complaint during the time of the lease, because of probably Harvey Levin probably knew a few days ago about the pill bottles that were found around the house and the other paraphernalia, I'm watching my words, found around the house, and that there was other people, guests of David, living in this mansion. So we do know that there was a noise complaint around 2 a.m. on July 20th, which I think is interesting. And Steve Fischer says, I have the body cam video from that incident. The complaint originated because 4 girls were outside waiting for their Uber. They were being loud. There are no other complaints. But I'm wondering if Harvey Levin is characterizing this as a party house because of what the police found when they were in there. So let's continue on together, shall we? Let's continue on.
2 things. One, that aligns with what an LAPD captain told us who is running this when he said to us that, and on the record, that this was a complicated investigation, and that could explain that. But the other thing is, if they can't determine cause of death because they can't do a proper tox evaluation, the DA is going to have a hell of a time charging anybody.
Well, and one of the problems is, and I've had this in numerous cases, if the coroner bases part of his cause of death on information he's getting post-mortem from a detective or from somebody else, then that is ripe for a cross-examination that says you weren't able to draw a conclusion purely from a scientific or based on a biological basis or based on a pathological basis or doing it on what was at your disposal scientifically. You're doing it based or informed on what you're getting after the fact. And that is why it's so complicated.
Okay, so Steve Fischer was upset about the characterization of the house as a party house. Again, remember, who has hired Steve Fischer, the owner of the mansion. So he probably, was wondering about his liability in this case. He's probably concerned about the resale value or re-rent value of this $3.5 to $4 million mansion. I think, if you think about other cases like the Chris Watts case, that house is probably hard to resell, right? The Watts family home, because people want to go by and take pictures of it. The Amityville horror house was also a tough house to resell because to this day, even though that movie came out like 60 years ago or something, people still want to come by and take pictures of that house. But Steve Fischer also he also added that David often entertained, but that's not a crime. This is Steve Fischer saying that, emphasizing that the 20-year-old artist was paying a large amount to lease the home and that entertaining is expected. So he also pushed back on the claim that he identified the Tesla driver because there was only one key. He was upset about that to the main house. Now, I did hear him say that, but he didn't say it. That's how he identified the Tesla. But he did say repeatedly there was only one key. And that's just simply, I told you guys at the time, I would take that with a pinch of salt because I believe that, it's very easy to make a copy of a key. Now that we know there are other people staying there, entourage probably, and friends, but he said, I quote, I identified the driver of the Tesla through the surveillance footage. And he did say that. And the individual was wearing something highly distinctive, also seen about 12 hours earlier inside the house. Let's continue on.
We have spoken with the owner of the house who rented it out to David's manager, and then David stayed there. The owner has asked the LAPD for a return on the search warrant, or at least to know what was seized, because it's his property. They are radio silent with him. They will not tell him. That's
He
how.
won't get that. He won't get that, because what's going to happen is, I'm sure what has happened, I will make a bold prediction, not knowing, that search warrant return is most probably under seal.
Oh, it is. I can tell you, yes.
Yeah, because you probably sent people down there. And they're not going to unseal that return. And for the people who don't know, when you get the search warrant, the affidavit is under seal, because the affidavit has got the statement of probable cause signed by an affiant under a declaration under penalty of perjury given to a judge. The judge will allow certain portions of that search warrant to be delivered when it's executed that basically says you can go search here, here, and here, and these are the items you can take. However, when you go to file the return, which is what you're talking about, you have to file that with the court, because the court is the one who technically takes possession of it, but outsources that to the police. And that return will remain under seal while the investigation goes on. And up until and unless they charge somebody in connection with this, they may not unseal it. At some point, it probably will be, but the only way sooner than that is if there's a criminal filing.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is this important? Right? Because why is this important? Well, the owner of the mansion was trying to get a copy of the search warrant. He wanted a copy because they went into his property, his home, and they're refusing to hand it over to him. In part, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with what Mark Geragos just said. But also, Steve Fischer has been talking a lot. PI Steve Fischer has been appearing on multiple shows and sharing what he knows, except for the name of the driver. He won't tell us that. But other than that, he's been pretty open about sharing, at least to what we know, the information that he's been able to find. So police also probably feel like, well, if we give it to the owner, this could end up, being leaked out to the press. And so they're just not going to return what they took and what they found in the search warrant. They're not going to go after or undermine their own investigation. So that's why this is important. The owner of the house wants it because he's worried that things that belong to him could have potentially been taken. And the police are saying it doesn't matter. It's a search warrant. We don't have to give it to you, and we're not going to give it to you. We're going to protect the integrity of the investigation. Let's continue on. Again, this is TMZ Harvey Levin speaking with defense attorney Mark Geragos.
I wasn't really even talking about the search warrant. I don't know the answer to this. It's his home. And, does a homeowner, especially one who rents a place out, where he says, I need to know what was taken from my house, aside from the search warrant being sealed, do they ever work with a homeowner to know, hey, here's what we took? Because ordinarily you would know if you were living in the house and you own the house. He wasn't living in the house, but they still won't tell him.
That becomes a judgment call. I mean, legally he could do a motion for return of property under 1524 or one of the other code sections of the penal code and say, I want this returned, I want that returned. For instance, if they took property that he had in the house, if it was a partially furnished house that he rented or something along those lines. If, however, stuff that they took is connected to the investigation, a judge would do a balancing act and say, look, a ongoing criminal investigation is going to trump your right to get the return of property, and therefore I'm not going to grant the return of property. That would be my speculation as to what would happen if he tried to pursue that. If the homeowner, however, is cooperative, and by all accounts that appears to be the case, they may facilitate the return of things that he may need. For instance, if there's a security system, if they've already imaged the security system, meaning the cops, and they have an image, they may give that potentially back to him, although I doubt it, because then it would be challenged if somebody's charged later on that the image is not as good as the original, and that would expose them to something. So there's all kinds of nuances to what they could return and what they might return.
I don't even know if the owner of the mansion wants it back because he's worried about his security system. I think he just wants to know what happened in the house. I think the reason he hired Steve Fischer is to see if he has any liability here. Remember, he rented the house to Josh Marshall, not David. And so does he have any liability here, any potential liability? And also, the idea of re-renting this house, if people are going to be coming by forevermore or reselling this house, to be taking pictures of this house because it's linked back to D4VD and this crime. If there's if it's determined, we know that there are crimes. The idea that there's nothing he can be charged with, I think is ridiculous, considering we've heard now from the family that he was in contact with Celeste when she was 10 or up to 11 years old. But Steve Fischer also pushed back on the claim that he identified the Tesla driver because there was only one key to the house. I agree. He didn't say that. He said there was one key to the house. But I don't think it's, necessarily the only way to get into a Tesla. I mean, you can use your key fob. But he added that the homeowner supplied one physical key for security reasons, and that David, probably made duplicates. This is according to PI Steve Fischer. Now, Steve Fischer further rejected TMZ Harvey Levin's suggestion that prosecutors cannot pursue charges if the LA County medical examiner rules what happened to Celeste as being undetermined. That's what's it's listed right now. And he said, quote, "That's completely false." He said the cause and manner of how she passed away, I'm watching my words here, so this is a paraphrase of what he said, "has no impact on the concealment charge. That crime happened, full stop." I agree. I agree, but I think there can be other charges brought too, and I went through that with you guys, all of the felonies and misdemeanors that could be charged in this case because she was not at an age to consent.
No, generally, the area where you have pretty good recon with sources, he is right now. They're trying to figure out: did she die at the hands of someone else? Did she die from an overdose? Whatever. But at the same time, she was 14 years old when she died. There is plenty of smoke that we've seen that David had some sort of relationship with her. And he was an adult and she was 14 and was younger than that even when they were allegedly together.
And remember, we have multiple friends of David's that said they thought she was a university student when they were out. So they have seen her with David. We have neighbors who said that she was always with David. And then we have another neighbor that says they saw her sitting outside the mansion.
We know that. Do you have any information on whether there are parallel investigations going? One, if she was killed, who killed her? And two, was he having a relationship with a minor? Would they be looking at both of those now, or just focusing on the alleged homicide?
Based on and this is completely based on who is supervising this investigation. It is, if there are parallel tracks, I don't want to call it parallel investigations, but parallel tracks, and one being kind of a sex-based, when I say sex-based, I think you know what I mean, versus just the homicide-based. Based on who is supervising this right now, they're exploring every track but the homicide investigation, if it is a homicide. Because remember, a homicide is death at the hands of another. That is not even clear at this point. But that investigation is being conducted by a unit that is not primarily concerned with kind of the implication that you are drawing.
Right, and that's what I'm raising, that robbery homicide is handling the death investigation. Sex crimes, which is a separate division, would be handling what I just referred to, which is, was he having a relationship, a physical relationship with a minor? And I don't know how that works. I've never really seen anything like that in the DA's office. Does one defer to the other? Do they
have, in the DA's office, traditionally, they have vertical units. And when I say vertical units, you've got major crimes, you've got sex crimes, you've got, I jokingly have called.
Okay, so I think that it's pretty clear that they just, that there are probably multiple investigations going on.
Been decided it's a homicide. The DA is absolutely involved in this case.
The DA is absolutely involved in this case, according to Harvey Levin. I believe that too. We've already had him come out and speak. Let's listen in to what Harvey Levin says his sources are. Remember, TMZ does pay for tips. I do believe they have good contacts in the LAPD. Mark Geragos has been a practicing criminal defense attorney, and I believe he also has good contacts with the LAPD. Let's listen to what they say.
Absolutely, the DA is involved in this case. And by the way, when you hear, so people understand that, so there's no mistake. When you hear it's still in the investigative stage, it hasn't been presented to the DA's office yet, or something along those lines, that is really exalting form over substance, because the DA's office, and this is a historical, this goes back a generation or more, they get involved and oftentimes roll out very quickly after something. There is that parallel kind of supervision along with either LAPD or LA County Sheriff, or if the feds are involved, a joint task force. But they are updated. They are asked questions, especially when you have search warrants that are executed, especially when you want to get information, as you would in this case. This case is heavy duty in terms of, you want all of the Tesla information. You want all of the information about the phones. You want to know all of the cell phone records. You're going to want to know where the cell phone records of all the various people are. You're going to also want to know, have there been, on the history of complaints within LAPD, what has been presented to both the DA or the city attorney at various times on the history of that location, of everybody involved. And you're going to have the DA's office intimately involved if there's any kind of outreach to somebody for cooperation, which, by the way, there already has been.
Oh, there already has been. Okay, so a little nugget dropped there, which I think is interesting. So Steve Fischer said the focus should be on accountability. This is PI Steve Fischer. He said whether what happened to Celeste was, by accident, like, an OD or homicide. He said that every single person needs to meet the legal burden to be charged with the crime, should be charged in this case. He said that this involves a 14-year-old child in the company of adults. She was not of the age to consent, and they were of the age to be held accountable. End quote. That is Steve Fischer. Steve Fischer also provided new insight into Celeste's timeline, noting, and I think he's done a great job investigating this case, noting that she was reported missing multiple times before she passed away. The first time was on February 14th. That's Valentine's Day of 2024. Again on April 5th of 2024, but later was seen alive at a family event. And that's where I just showed you. She attended her cousin's graduation in May of 2024. And that was seen on video in September. So he's wondering why the family never updated law enforcement that she was safe. And maybe she just left again. Maybe they didn't find out. This is just me, speculating here. But maybe she did attend her cousin's graduation, but maybe they didn't realize she was there until she was gone again. Maybe she attended her cousin's graduation, said congratulations, and then disappeared again the same day. And they just got to a point where they didn't know what to do with Celeste. She just, no matter what they did, she just kept running away. I want to see where you guys are at on these polls. Let me go back in the comment section. I'm just really curious what you guys think on the poll. Let me go back to the polls that we've been doing. And come on up and talk to me if you're just joining me. So my first one was, what were these farm implements? So now we have, was this a wood chipper of some kind? Like, what was there? What were the farm implements? Was this something else? So if you think it's a farm implement, let me see. I'm going to back up and see what you guys thought. Trying to get to I'm so behind on chat. I am sorry. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm still backing up. Okay, we're going to keep going through this interview together, but I just want to see where you guys are at. The farm implements that Steve Fischer said that they found in the house. Is this a wood chipper or something like that? It's still wrapped up. He said it was still brand new, according to the Daily Mail. All right, so I'm looking to see what you guys thought on that. And if you think it was a wood chipper, we're putting a 1 in the chat. If you think it was something else, put a 2 in the chat. I'm just looking for 1s and 2s. There we go. And Jazz is our head mod. It thinks it's a 1. Mike is our other head mod, thinks it's a 2. Aaron thinks it's a 2. Kathy thinks it's a chainsaw that they found. Hey, Chris Ann. Thank you for modding today, Cabling. Mike says he didn't hear about the wood chipper. That's what I thought it was. 1954, Jules thinks it's a chainsaw. Kathy Bling also thinks it's a chainsaw. Cabling thinks it's a chainsaw. Juanita thinks it's a wood chipper. The reason I went to wood chipper is I don't know if you've ever seen. Let me move myself out of the way for a second. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Fargo, but that's where I got that from. Chris Ann wonders if it was a large barrel. Cat Sear says, I think it was a large container. Donna thinks it was a wood chipper. It is creepy. You're right. Juanita says the chainsaw wood chipper. It seems to me like she was found before they got further into their plans. Okay, so that's poll 1. Let's go to the next poll. If you think that the song that David put into Band Lab this week, if you think this was uploaded by David himself, put David. If you think it was uploaded by somebody who is not David, put not David. And I also asked about the second home. Let me do that. If you think that there is a second crime scene, was Celeste at the second home? Kathy thinks she was at both. Second home, second home. Okay. And then the other poll we had removed. I'm just like curious where you guys are at on this. Removed. Second home. And Njaz is our head mod. Njaz asking people, please give this a thumbs up. It does help me with the algorithm. All right. Hey, Holly, thank you for modding today. Keep it one. Daly says, was the Tesla being moved from the Doheny location? That is such a great question. That is such a great question. Brother Mike thinks it was in the freezer. Hey, Veronica. Bailey says, were they planning to go to another location for the disposal now that the equipment has arrived? Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for modding today, Cabling and Lori. Thank you. Juanita says, I don't understand why people would want to protect someone that read rum, someone for years in Hollywood. There were rumors that the Hollywood is, I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't seen any evidence of that, and I've been deep diving it. If there was, I would bring it to you. But so far, I haven't found anything like that. Katsier says, I would love to hear people talk about that angle. I'm surprised I haven't seen much about it. All right, let's continue on with this. Let me move myself back down here.
So I spent some time this week with Ellen Greenberg's parents. And Ellen Greenberg is the woman in Pennsylvania who had 23 stab wounds, yet the ME said it was suicide, which is bullshit.
I'm going to skip over this. It's like just very sad.
Requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt if the ME himself can't come up with a conclusion.
Well, you bring up a point. I'm literally this morning on a completely unrelated case, something that we do all the time. Whenever you have a case, whether I'm defending somebody who is accused of a crime or I'm representing the family of somebody who is the victim of a crime, one of the first calls that we make is to get a private autopsy done. Because, as you know from over the years, I mean, two of the people that I've dealt with for years, either Dr. Bottom or the late Dr. Cyril Wecht, would conduct the private autopsies and often would give you insight and had the expertise that, frankly, an overworked coroner will not have. And so that's one of the first things you do. If you're Celeste Rivas's family and you want to know what's going on, one of the first things you do once you get the remains is you have a private pathologist do the examination.
And I don't know if that happened. I don't think that happened. I don't know if they have the resources to do that. But if I were advising Celeste Rivas Hernandez's family, I would advise them to have their own attorney, similar to what Steve and Christy Gonzalez did, just simply to represent them in the media, just to protect their interests. That would be, if I were like selling them, I would start a GoFundMe so that they could, go ahead and have their own attorney, and then this attorney can advise them on information like this. So I do think that is really helpful. If you have the resources to be able to hire your own ME, that would be really, really helpful. Let me go back into chat because we did another poll. Let me see. The other poll, I wanted to know if you guys thought it was uploaded by David or not David. Yeah, if you have any questions, come on up and talk to me. Dido Apple says, is there really a statue of David in Texas at a bayou near where? Not that I know of, but I don't know. I don't know. And just says, what do you think when I click the link? I only see the main page. I don't know. I'm sorry. Kaloa says entourages are just glorified groupies. They are big time leeches too. And cabling thinks is that divine celestial is, huge. I think it is too. I think it is too. Gustav thinks it was David that uploaded it. So if you think who uploaded the song to Bandland, Band Lab, was it David? Kalua thinks it was David. Lori thinks it was David. Bailey thinks it was David. So looks like a lot of people think it was David. Veronica doesn't know. She's not sure. That's okay. Keep It Italy thinks it was David. It is creepy. Joel thinks it was David. And, is he starting his next song? Is he like looking at this whole thing, licking his chops, thinking, you know what? I'm not going to get held accountable for anything. Thank you so much for modding today, and Jazz. Hey, Nicole. All right, so let's keep going, because I do think this is very, very helpful to just have people that do have an in on this case. Again, this is TMZ Harvey Levin speaking with high-profile Mark Garagos, defense attorney, who defended Scott Peterson.
So that you get some answers yourself. You don't, eventually the body gets released to the family. They don't keep the body ad infinitum. So you get the body, you hire a private pathologist, you do. And by the way, if you don't have the funds for a private pathologist, there are ways that you can get it done without any out of pocket. So there are a multitude of ways that you could approach this, and that if you had lawyers who are doing what they should be doing, they should be doing that very same thing.
So if I were advising Celeste Rivas Hernandez families, I would say get your own lawyers to start advising you of things that you can do to make sure you get justice for your child, to make sure you can get justice for your child, because otherwise, we all know how this goes. Stuff gets swept under. And Michael, who's our head mod, along with NJAS, is saying, please do not time out or delete any messages. Only head mods, NJAS or Michael, that's him, will do it. And so just greet people. Delete any comments that you see that are just like, please watch what words you use in the chat. Welcome, Black Apple. Bailey said there was one artist listed too, one other artist. And then NJAS is just letting people know, please be respectful to everyone, no arguing, no bad language, no writing in all caps. We are a G-rated channel. We're trying to be. I don't know if today we really are, but most days we are. Holly, because of this interview that these two are doing. Holly said, welcome. Yeah, because we want to, just because someone disagrees with me or disagrees, that's okay. Hey, Leslie, we want everybody to feel comfortable, and we don't all have to agree. We're not going to all agree on everything. I want to welcome NJAS as a Reporter Room channel member. Thank you so much for being part of the Reporter Room family, NJAS. She is now an executive producer on the channel. Welcome. Thank you to Michael Cole. Thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker. That is so generous of you. Thank you so much. NJAS gifted 5 Reporter Room memberships. Oh my goodness. If you got one of those Reporter Room memberships, please make sure you say thank you to NJAS. Thank you, NJAS. And Michael gifted a second $1.99 super sticker. That is so kind of you, Michael. Thank you so much. I will be putting that toward the channel. Thank you very, very much. NJAS gifted another Reporter Room membership. Wow. If you got that, please make sure you say thank you to NJAS. And she gifted another Reporter Room membership. Wow. Who got the membership? Do you know? So if you got a Reporter Room membership, it's from NJAS. Thank you, NJAS. And she gifted another Reporter Room membership. So if you got that, please make sure you say thank you to NJAS. That is so kind of you. Wow. And another Reporter Room membership. Oh my gosh, NJAS. That is so generous of you. Thank you very, very much. So we do have a secret poll. I do have it up right now for channel members. If you want to go look at that, if you just became a channel member, you can join that. Nicole says the The like didn't change when I hit it. It stayed at 94. Oh dear. I hope it's not stuck. Maybe you already liked it before when you came in. Anna says they met playing Roblox when she was 11 years old, I believe. Yeah, her family is saying that she was 10 or 11 years old. That's really, I mean, that's really young. Cat Sears, that's why I think it's a horse trough farm specific. Oh, wow. I never thought about that. Hey, Janine. All right. And Adele says someone said the song was uploaded for a short while, had a digital footprint in Australia. So who's in Australia, right? I'd love to know. So was this somebody in his entourage or was this David?
In fact, I don't want to second guess anybody. They could be doing it already. If you're representing David or you're representing somebody connected to David and you want to be helpful, one of the ways to be helpful is to reach out to Celeste Rivas's family and or somebody, the next of kin, and offer to have a private autopsy done so that you can get the answers and you can move things up or speed things up and make sure that you've got a backstop or a parallel investigation going on. You don't want to rely on somebody who, and I'm not throwing shade anywhere, but it's one way to conduct a parallel investigation to get to the bottom of it, to make sure that you're getting the answers that you want, you need when you're in that kind of a position.
But here's
I think that's really good advice. So Celeste Rivas Hernandez, we're going to do purple hearts in honor of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Please say her name. We want to keep her name out front and center. If anybody knows her family or, if a family member is watching, please consider getting fundraising, put a GoFundMe up for an attorney.
the thing. If the ME comes back and says cause of death undetermined with Celeste Rivas, I think the DA would have a next to impossible chance of securing any conviction against anyone, because I don't see how you prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt if the ME has enough doubt to say, I don't know.
And I disagree with Harvey's assessment on this, and I have two words, and it's regarding this guy right here, Scott Peterson. We don't know to this day how he did away with Lacey. We don't know if he had her in the pool and he, just pulled her under the water. We don't know if it was, in bed. We don't know, but they were still able to secure a conviction. So I have two words, Scott Peterson, and this guy right here represented Scott Peterson.
It's such a fascinating question. I'm old enough to remember, you're old enough to remember back in the day when it was, there was a gentleman, a deputy DA named J. Miller Levy, who made his career in the 40s and 50s because he was one of the first people who was able to prove a murder case without a body, literally without a corpus. And now what you're suggesting is, could you prove a murder case with no cause of death?
I think it's hard. I think it's harder when you have the body and they say, we just can't figure it out.
I think it's harder, but I don't think it's impossible. That's my opinion. Let me know if you have a different one. But I think it is harder. I agree with that assessment. I think he's right, but I don't think it's impossible. I just don't think it's impossible. I still think it's possible to be able to do it, even though it's hard. And, there's nothing wrong with things being hard. Kalu says Harvey Levin and Mark Geragos are on celebrities' payrolls. You don't trust their. I don't think they're on celebrities' payroll. I mean, Mark Geragos represents celebrities, so for sure, yeah, okay. But Harvey, I don't think so. But that's just, we don't have to all agree. We're not going to all agree on every single case, and it's okay if you don't want to trust their info. I just thought having their take on it was really helpful, especially Mark Geragos, who did defend in the Scott Peterson case. So when I saw he was, doing this with Harvey, I thought, oh, this is really interesting. Your mama says, hey, I just got home. Oh, you had knee replacement surgery. I hope you're healing well. Please take care of yourself and go easy. Hey, Bougie Cat. Bailey said, I'm interested to know who their chaperones for their contractual appearance obligations are. Who is there? I'm not sure who there is. Alaric Alan Ortega says, so if they're talking to people that are telling them stuff, why couldn't they tell us? Because this is, okay, so you're asking why they would tell Harvey Levin versus just coming out and telling us? That's a great question. This is my opinion. Allegedly, in my opinion, my understanding is that TMZ pays for tips. So they're willing to pay money for leaks, basically. I'm not saying that all their tips are paid for, but they are willing to do that. So I do think that over the years, they probably have established certain lines of communication into the LAPD where people can anonymously report information out to them and they can get back with that information. Mark Geragos, I don't know but he has been a defense attorney for a good long while. He is well known in that part of California. So I would think that he would also have some inroads. So I think both of these guys probably do have pretty good contacts, in my opinion, on this case. That's just my opinion, and it's okay if we don't agree. We're not going to all agree on every single thing, but I did think it was interesting to hear their take on it versus Steve Fischer's take on it, and just sort of juxtapose that information, and then tell me what you guys think on it, because I like to read your comments because I learn from you guys. Nicole says, I was wanting to say this is a wonderful group. Lots of people care for others. Thanks for that. Thank you so much. This is a critical thinkers channel, so all opinions, as long as they're shared respectfully, are welcome. Veronica said, I'm wondering if she was put into something. I don't know. Jamilka says, this case is as strange as the Twilight Zone. It is really, really bizarre. Very, very, very sad. Colin said, it was David who got rid of her soul. He was fantasizing about it for years. He objectified her. She grew up. He was grossed out. He dumped her. I do think that as she became more mature, that he would have despised her for that. I do, because I don't think that David likes women. I just don't. That's just my opinion. Why is he wearing all of this type of gear? But this alter ego, and the fact that he's selling these custom Itami shirts with red paint on them is gross. Some of his posts are gross. So I do think, and this is the house on Doheny that I was telling you about. That is the house. And that is definitely them in the house. That is the shades rolled down. Same window shades. Let me move myself down. Same hood stove. If you look at the hood, if you look at the cabinets, you can see it's like a beadboard cabinet with handles, and then you look here, you can see a beadboard cabinet, and you can even see the same kind of tile. If you look up, let me move myself over here. If you look at the tile over the stove, and then you can see that's the same tile over the stove. That is the same house. And then this is them, and this is the bathroom. Them in the bathroom posing with this picture. Look at the picture in the back. 1, 2, 3. With the water, and then look at the house on Doheny. Look at the bathroom. Look at the picture. There's 1, 2, 3. It has coat hangers hanging on it, but you can see it's got an ocean view, ocean in the background. And I do believe that is the same photograph that they're posing for in this photo. So I do think that they can link David to Celeste. I do believe that. Well, I'm going to be going over, and I am going to definitely be doing updates on the Lily and Jack case, because that case just blew wide open today. So we have updates on that. Dee Dee, thank you for joining today. You didn't get a notification. Try hitting the notification bell again. Sometimes that can happen. Hey, Mariska. Bougie says, yep, that's the house. He stashed her there for sure. And if you have any tips for me, you can email me at tipsforjessica@outlook.com. That's not to send me a tip. That's to send me tips in the case of, so that's sending me a tip in the case. Anna Rivera says, there is a case right now against Matthew Paul. It's mostly circumstantial, but when the evidence is shown, you can see a guilty person. So in this case, why not charge him? Right. And nobody has said that they're not going to charge him. Nobody has said that they're not going to charge anybody in the Celeste case. I just think that they're, looking through the pros and the cons. I think it is a tough case for a couple of different reasons. One, we have this Doheny address that, was put back up for rent on March 7th of 2025. So months before law enforcement would have known that she was at the address. I don't know if a search warrant was served on this property or not. I don't know. I don't know. And if they did serve it, was somebody else been living there for such a long time that it's just not going to be usable. So I think that's part of the problem and why we have a little bit of a pause. But I do think there's lots of circumstantial evidence. This divine celestial Hello Kitty and then this post, I talked about this, about the black crows and what that signifies. And this, what was posted on her birthday. I don't think this was an accident. And of course, we have Neo liking it because he was David's personal assistant. And then this is Neo, and this was taken at Coachella, allegedly. And if you look at the reflection in the fireplace, you can see, looks like two figures. Now, it could be just David is reflected twice and he was filming this, but it could also be David and Celeste. I don't know. I'm not going to try to take a guess on that one. And then some people have wondered, Steve Fischer said that whoever was driving the Tesla, that, the shirt was very distinctive. Well, I would say that's a distinctive shirt. And I would say that this is Neo wearing a very distinctive shirt. I mean, David's in a lot of clothing that's very distinctive. So I don't know if we can read too much, into that. I'm just not sure. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Well, thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. I am going to go over and do the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan, the two missing children out of Nova Scotia. We're going to be talking about that in a separate live stream, which I'm going to start right now. So please consider subscribing. I do want to say thank you to our producers, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael Cole, and Christy Ballantyne. Thank you so, so much. And I want to welcome our brand new executive producer, Njaz, to the Reporter Room family. Welcome, Njaz, and thank you so much for being an executive producer. And I also want to say thank you to all of our awesome channel members. Thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for all that you do. I really am grateful for each and every one of you. You allow me to cover some of these cases. Thank you to our mods, Incognito, Michael L. Cole, Njaz, Lori Dart Designs, Holly Go Lightly. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Cabling. If you're a mod, drop me a comment right now so I can shout you out. Lori Dart Designs. Dee Dee. Thank you so much. And this is all of our channel members. If you want your name to appear like this, you can hit the join button, which is next to the subscribe button. And Tara is also. So here is Tara. Thank you for modding. Incognito, thank you for modding. Dee Dee, thank you for modding. And to our head mods, Njaz and Michael L. Cole, thank you so, so much. And Bougie says, also pay attention to that jewelry store clerk who said he hopes D4VD and Celeste pick out jewelry. And he said, oh, I didn't hear about that. I did not hear about that. That's really sad. Juanita says, I think, in my opinion, David, over the years, yeah, I'm worried about that too. What happened to the dent in the car? Well, we haven't heard anything about that. We don't know yet, but hopefully we'll find out more about that. Helped David and Celeste pick out jewelry. Thank you for sharing that tip. And Shelly says, great show, best mods, congrats, Njaz. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. I'm going to go over right now and